Hi, thanks for joining us for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. I'm Chris Cooper. Not all bugs are bad. In fact, beneficial bugs can take care of some infestations before they are even a problem. Also quick, 5 ounces per acre is how much on your 50 square foot bean patch. Today we'll show you how to do garden math. That's just ahead on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today is Tanya Ashworth. Tanya is our local garden expert, and Mr. D is here. Thanks for joining us.
Howdy.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. All right, Tanya, let's talk a little bit about beneficial bugs. But first, what do we mean by beneficial?
Well, a beneficial bug or beneficial insect is a bug that helps you reach your goals in the garden. Some of them are pollinators. We think of immediately our bees that are good pollinators, so they're beneficial to us. And also we have a lot of bugs that kill other bugs that we don't like.
Okay.
So we have bugs that eat the bugs that would eat our vegetables.
Okay. So you want to start with the braconid wasp?
Sure. The braconid wasp is a common thing to be seen in the garden, but most people don't know when they've seen evidence of the braconid wasp. Usually you'll find these on tomato hornworms on your tomato plants. You'll see all these little white egg sacs on the back of the caterpillar, and the braconid wasp, even though it's a wasp, it will not sting you. They're very tiny, like an 1/8 of an inch, so very small. The female lays her eggs on the back of caterpillars, moths, beetle larvae, and some aphids. And when those eggs hatch, the larvae eat the host, the tomato hornworm or whatever. And then after they are done eating, the bad bug dies, and the new beneficials fly away to infect more of your pests. So if you see a tomato hornworm that has all these little white egg sacs on the back, you don't want to squish it. You want to leave it there so that it can provide food for those good bugs. You can also attract them in your garden by growing certain things like dill, parsley, wild carrot, and yarrow. In general, any kind of little herb with small flowers, the adult wasps like to use for nectar. Wow,
small flowers. I think that's pretty interesting. Okay. Now let's talk about green lacewing.
Okay. The green lacewing, the larvae are the ones that feed on the pests. In this case, they like aphids, mealybugs, caterpillars, scales, thrip, and whiteflies. So a lot of the things that we don't like, they like to munch on. The female will lay her eggs on a slender egg stalk, and she can lay about 200 eggs at a time on these stalks. And one larva that emerges from that will eat 200 aphids in a week. So they're called aphid lions. They're really hungry, hungry guys.
In a week?
In a week, 200 aphids. And they will feed for 2 to 3 weeks before they go into a cocoon, and then 5 days later they emerge. You can plant some things to attract them to your garden, like Angelica, Coreopsis, Cosmos, and Sweet Alyssum. And you can also mail order those egg stalks with the eggs.
Okay.
So yeah, the green lacewing are very beneficial. You don't want to spray those with an insecticide. And in fact, a good rule of thumb is, when you spray an insecticide, you oftentimes kill the beneficials with the ones that you're trying to get rid of.
Good stuff.
Yeah, so unless you use BT, because it's specific to caterpillars, but if you use a broad spectrum insecticide, you're going to kill all of your good with your bad. So you want to be careful in how you use those.
Good information to share, Tanya. Good information. How about this next one, though? A pirate bug.
Yes,
how about that?
Minute pirate bugs. Kind of a fun name.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
They're very small, a 1/12 to a 1/5 of an inch long. That's where they get the minute from, very small. And they're black and white in color. The immature stages are very small. They're kind of teardrop shaped and brown and orangey colored. The adults and the nymphs will both be predators for thrips, spider mites, aphids, and their eggs. And an adult will eat 30 spider mites a day. So they're quick moving. They'll attack just about anything, though, not just those particular pests that we like to get rid of. And the way they attack their prey is they have a piercing, sucking mouth part. So they'll use that mouth part to inject into their prey, and then they will suck the juices out of the prey. Yuck, but that's how they do it. They can go from an egg to adult in 3 weeks, and they have 3 generations per season. And this is another one that you can buy online. And they're actually a really good predatory bug if you've got a greenhouse, and they may be more effective than others. And if you want to try to just encourage them to come to your garden, you can plant goldenrod, daisies, alfalfa, yarrow, clover, and vetch.
Okay. All right. So how about this next group of beneficial bugs? Spiders?
Spiders,
Really? Spiders?
yes. Well, they're not technically an insect. We talk about beneficial insects. They're not technically an insect because they have 8 legs instead of 6, so they're an arachnid. But not all spiders build a web to catch their prey. In fact, the ones in our garden that are beneficial, they hunt their prey. So we have wolf spiders, jumping spiders, and crab spiders. And the wolf spiders, I know every gardener has seen. They live along in the leaf litter, in the mulch, and whenever you're turning your garden over or doing any kind of weeding, you'll find them there. They're kind of the large brown spiders with the stripes on their backs.
Yeah, large.
Yes.
Yes, they are.
And they carry around, the mama spider carries around her eggs with her where she goes. And after her young emerge for 2 weeks, she'll carry her young on her back. And they hunt at night in the leaf litter. Then we have the jumping spider. The jumping spider, even though they don't use a web, they'll use a strand of silk to tether themselves to a leaf, and then they'll jump on and attack their prey. And then the crab spiders have enlarged front legs, and that's where they get the name crab spider from. And they like to hang out on flowers and hunt for their prey from flower petals, and they can even change colors a little bit to camouflage against the flowers.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah,
not
pretty
fair.
cool.
Yeah,
not fair. They're good hunters.
Pretty good. All right, so how about the praying mantis? We've all heard about the praying mantis.
Well, the praying mantis are really cool looking bugs. Of course, they get their names from their big front legs that they use to grab their prey while they munch. And they can be really good at camouflaging themselves against twigs and sticks and all that kind of stuff. They like to lay their egg cases in like this paper mache looking thing. Actually bought a tree recently and it had one of these egg cases on it, so that was pretty cool. And the egg case will have like up to 200 baby praying mantis in there. And you won't even know that they've hatched. You can't tell the difference when you can't look at the egg case and tell if they've hatched or not. You just have to happen to see a baby praying mantis somewhere, and that's how you know that you've had a hatch. So you can buy them on the internet and put them in a greenhouse or in a garden setting, but you won't know if they've hatched or not unless you just so happen to see the babies. And these take 5 months to mature, and they can lay up to 5 egg cases in their lifetime. And they like to eat pretty much anything that will catch their attention. They're pretty slow moving. And yeah, so they'll grab anything, like another beneficial insect even. They'll grab, like bees and other praying mantis. So they're not real particular on what they eat.
Wow. That's pretty tough. I've never seen a baby one, though.
I haven't either, except like on the internet. You can like look up video of these things hatching out of their egg case. It's really pretty cool.
All right. It's pretty good stuff. Yeah. So once again, folks, be careful when you're using pesticides in the garden, right? Because we do have beneficials out there that will help us, right?
That's right.
Thank you much for that good information, Tanya. We appreciate that. There are a number of gardening events going on in the next couple of weeks. Here are just a few that might interest you. All right, Mr. D, let's see if we can tackle some garden math.
Gardening math. and
Yeah.
I hate math.
I think we all concur.
yeah.
But math is a big part of, putting down fertilizers, putting down pesticides. So you have to know a little math.
That's right,
So when they
kids.
told you to pay attention in the algebra class,
You
I hope
better
you
do
did.
that. You got it. You're going to have to use it.
Yes, you're going to have to use it.
Fortunately, we have calculators now that help, and there are a few apps out there that,
Yes,
that
they are.
give you a little bit of help too. But you better, it's good to be able
Yeah,
to
yeah.
know how to do it so you can kind of cross-check
Right.
and make sure you got it right. It's really important that you do it right, and you may want to, like I said, double-check, because one little decimal point can make a big difference. 2 decimal points makes a real big difference. So if you're supposed to get 10%, 0.1 instead of, or 0.01,
Right,
0.1, that's very
Makes a
important.
difference, no doubt about that.
But the important thing, when you're a lot of the pesticides and fertilizers and soil test reports and things like that will break homeowners' information down to 1,000 square feet,
Right,
or
exactly.
sometimes per 100 square feet. Most of the time it's per 1,000 square feet. So probably the most important thing you can do first is determine how many square feet that you're treating. And we all know that in order to find the area of a rectangle, you multiply the length times the width, and it'll give you the square in feet, and it'll give you the
Right.
square feet, or in inches, it'll give you the square inches. And if you have a lot, I would determine the area of the lot first, and then I would determine the area of your house and subtract that from your total square footage of your lot. Measure the area of your driveway, subtract that. Measure the area of your patio, subtract that. The area of your dog pen, subtract that. The area of your swimming pool, subtract that. The area of your workshop, subtract that. And when you've done all of that, you will pretty much have the area, total area in square footage that you're treating. So then you'll know how much product to buy. And then when if you're using a fertilizer, keep in mind, most of the soil test reports will tell you how much nitrogen you need per 1,000 square feet. They're not going to tell you how much triple 15 you need, because you may not have triple 15. You may have triple 10 or 6-12-12 or 3400, or there's a lot of different formulations of fertilizer. So they're going to tell you how much active ingredient you need per 1,000 square feet. And then when you buy that product, whatever you come up with, if it calls for 10 pounds of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet, and you've got a 34% product, then you've got to reduce the amount. You're going to increase the total amount of the product you put out to get that 34%. You've got to bring it down to 34%. Same way with a 10%. Triple 10 would be real easy. If you would need to put 10 pounds of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet, then you're going to put, if you have triple 10, be 100. I think 100 pounds of triple 10 that you're going to have to put out there. That'd be 2 bags of fertilizer.
Right.
So if it's a 50-pound bag, so just double check everything. Use algebra. Use your algebraic expressions. I have to write it down and look at it. I mean, if I try to do it in my head, I'm gonna make a mess. So write it down, and then cross multiply, cross check, and then make sure you got it right, because you don't want to. You can add more. So if you underestimate, you can go back and you can add more, but it's pretty hard to take up if you put too much out there. And putting too much out there with fertilizer can contaminate our water supplies, and it can create problems. It can create algae blooms and things like that. Don't feel like just because you have a 50-pound bag of fertilizer, you've got to use it all. It will keep. It will keep. You can roll it up and put some duct tape on it and use it next year. Just use what you need. And with herbicides, if you put out more than you're supposed to put out, you can kill desirable, grass. Some of the herbicides may be, targeted to just broadleaves, but if you go way, more than you're supposed to, you may kill everything that you've got out there.
For sure.
So it's important to follow label directions, and unfortunately, you got to use math.
Well, speaking of using math, you want to get to our math problem?
Well, let's do a math problem. Yeah.
Let's see if we can do one quickly.
Okay.
So set us up here. What do we have?
Have I got to show you my scratching here on this? I can do that. I can do that. What I've got here is triple 15 fertilizer,
Okay.
and the soil test recommendation calls for 10 pounds per 1,000 square feet. So I know that I have 4,000 square feet that I need to treat.
Okay.
I've done all my subtractions and additions and multiplications, and I've got a 4,000 square feet I need to treat. So I just set up an algebraic expression. Okay, 10 pounds per 1,000 square feet. I've got 4,000 square feet. So 4 times 10 is 40 pounds. I need 40 pounds of nitrogen on my 4,000 square feet. And I'm using triple 15, so triple 15 is 15% nitrogen, 15% phosphorus, and 15% potash.
Correct.
And so I've got a 15% material. So I set it up, 40 pounds is 15% of what? 40 pounds just happens to be 15% of 266.66. So I need 266.66 pounds of triple 15 on that 4,000 square feet. See, it's a weak material. So and the triple 15 is it's 45%. Now in that, you're also getting the same amount of potassium and the same amount of phosphate. So triple 15 is 45% fertilizer and 55% inert ingredients.
Material, as they say, or ingredient.
So there's a lot of fertilizer in there. But so that, I don't, 266 pounds, how many bags is that? That's quite a bit of fertilizer.
Yeah. And I think they come in, what, 40, maybe 40, 50-pound bags?
And 10 pounds of nitrogen is a lot of nitrogen. I just threw that out there. It may be probably 1 pound or 1 to 3 pounds is probably a more common recommendation on nitrogen fertilizer. So that was just an example that I used. So.
Yeah. And of course we know nitrogen moves pretty quickly through the soil.
Yeah. And it's going to be there if it's not encapsulated, if it's not slow release form. It will be gone in 4 to 6 weeks. A lot of rain, 4 weeks, 6 weeks.
Good point.
If it's not too much rain, in 4 to 6 weeks, it's gone.
Your algebra teacher would be proud of you, Mr. D. Thank you much.
No, trust me. Trust me, she wouldn't.
Well, we appreciate that math question for us, all right?
Thank you much.
This is a planting of the old flowering begonia, which is an annual that's been around for many decades. Often you'll see it advertised for use in sun or shade, and but maybe it actually does a little bit better in some shade, and this is a really good example right here. This patch that's doing so well and lush and covered with flowers is actually getting some shade from this overhang during the midday sun and the afternoon sun, which is the hottest part. Although it does get morning sun, which is ideal so that it will continue to flower well. If you look at this area, it's certainly baking in the hot sun for longer parts of the day, not doing as well. The temptation might be that you water it more heavily then. But in fact, begonia is a plant that suffers from too much water. So you don't want to keep that soil too wet. You will rot the roots and lose that planting. So be sure you check to be sure that it does need watering again. You also might want to check out some of the new forms that have the larger leaves and are really beautiful additions to the landscape.
All right, here's our Q&A session. Tanya, you help us out, we get in trouble, all right?
Okay.
Here's our first viewer email. I put a lot of coffee and tea grounds in my small compost pile. Does the caffeine from coffee grounds have any beneficial, neutral, or detrimental effects on plants or the compost organisms? My compost pile is also my fishing worm bed. Also, do my veggies accumulate caffeine in them? And this is from Mr. Dunn in Bartlett. What do you think about that, Tanya?
That's an excellent question.
It is.
But you have to know a little bit about soils and how plants take up minerals from the soil. And it's all at a very microscopic level. So you don't have to worry about your plants having extra caffeine in them. They're not going to have a problem with that because your plant root hairs are taking up things, at elemental levels. So caffeine is not a compound that they're going to take up. They're going to take up the different elements that used to be in the coffee grounds. And coffee and tea grounds are excellent sources of nitrogen for your compost pile.
Right.
So definitely keep using them and enjoy the benefits of those good source of greens, as we call it, in your compost pile. And you don't have to worry about any kind of negative effects from the caffeine.
Oh.
I have a theory, though, about the fishing worms.
Okay.
Sometimes the fishing worms I try to put on the hook are more active than others.
Oh,
Personally,
caffeine.
I think they had a shot of caffeine. For some of them,
maybe
they
so.
really wiggle a lot.
Oh, boy.
So I don't know. We need to check that
caffeine,
out. We need to study that. We need to look into that.
We can get a grant for research
Yeah,
on fishing
just to
worms.
study that. But what about those, those compost organisms that are in there, those microorganisms? Do you
Well,
think the caffeine would affect
I
them
don't think
as they're
so.
breaking down the compost?
I don't think so. I haven't read anything about that anywhere, and all I've read is how great coffee grounds and tea grounds are. So
Okay.
I think you're okay.
All right, so there you have it, Mr. Dunn. All right, here's our next viewer email, the picture. There is a rust-like coating or growth on some of our beans this year. What is it? And do we need to worry about it spreading throughout the patch? And this is Miss Sarah in Franklin. So rust-like coating on the beans. Mr. D, have you seen that before?
Probably rust.
It's
wouldn't you
rust.
say? It's
Yeah,
probably rust.
rust.
Yeah, it's a very, very common fungal disease that attacks snap beans and a lot of beans. There are there's reddish brown pustules on the leaves and pods, and that's pretty clear. There's fungicides that will do the trick. Chlorothalonil, Bravo, and even sulfur will take rust out. So keep in mind with a fungicide, they're preventative in nature primarily. So if you've already got the problem, you're not going to cure the problem that you've got with chlorothalonil and sulfur, but you should prevent it from spreading to unaffected tissue. So, if you've got a problem with it right now, you might want to spray and then wait until 7 to 10 days or something like that, and the rust is more of a problem. Most fungal organisms like moist, warm, moist conditions, and if we have drier conditions and a lot of sunshine and all that, and you've got some air drainage, then that problem might go away.
Right.
If not, every 7 to 10 days, you can treat with a fungicide, but you do need to look at the label and make sure, check for pre-harvest intervals, because if you're picking these snap beans, make sure that if that's a 7-day waiting period after you've sprayed, then you need to wait 7 days before you pick them.
Okay. Does it affect the actual bean itself?
As far as the organism, yes, it is actually feeding on that pod.
Okay.
It's feeding on the pod. Now, will it hurt you if you eat that?
Right. Which is what I'm getting at.
Probably not.
Okay.
As far as I'm not aware of any of rust being a problem for if you accidentally ingest some.
Okay. There you have it, Miss Sarah. All right. Here's our next viewer email. My squash has large leaves and yellow flowers. On my plants, when the squash flower falls off, the squash dies. What did I do wrong? And this is Miss Norma. So Tanya, what happened?
All right, well, that's a very common question,
Very
especially at the beginning of the growing season. Squash actually have male flowers and female flowers. And so obviously the only flowers that can bear fruit are the female flowers.
Right.
So it just so happens that squash has a tendency to put male flowers on first. And obviously you've got to have female flowers and male flowers at the same time to get a squash, a fruit. So probably what's happening, it's early in the blooming season when this person, when she noticed this, and you've got all male flowers, and the male flowers, since they can't grow a fruit, they fall off, and that's pretty much the end of it. And you can tell if you have a male flower or a female flower by looking at the base end of it. It's the little stem kind of part that attaches the flower to the stem. If it's kind of swollen from the get-go, then that is the female ovary part of the plant. So hang on, you'll get fruit
Hang on.
unless the squash vine borers get too unfurled. But yeah, so but yes, you will eventually have both male and female at the same time blooming and get pollination, and your female flowers will bear fruit and your male ones will just continue to fall off.
All right. Yeah, the small embryonic fruit.
Yes.
Yeah, that you see behind, that's attached to the female flowers, what that is.
Uh-huh.
All right. So bees actually help with the pollination, but what if you don't have any bees? How can you help?
Well, you can get a Q-tip, yeah, and do it yourself. Mm-hmm.
And explain that one to your neighbors, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So there you have it, Miss Norma. All right. But Tanya, Mr. D, we're out of time. It's been fun. Thanks.
All right, thanks.
All right. Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us an email or letter. The email address is familyplot@wkno.org, and the mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee 38016. Or you can go online to familyplotgarden.com. That's all we have time for today. If you'd like more information on beneficial insects or more garden math examples, head on over to familyplotgarden.com. Thanks for watching. I'm Chris Cooper. Be sure to join us next week for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.